Ladies and gentlemen, it's now 7:03, and a regular meeting of the Orleans Zoning Board of Appeals is called to order. I am Michael P. Marnick, and I am presently the chair. Also with me are members Beth McCarthy and William McCarthy, members also Gerald Mulligan and Bruce Taub. In attendance, in addition, the board secretary Sandy Stewart and the building commissioner of the town of Orleans, Tom Evers. We have 5 items on the agenda. A little bit of housekeeping. The minutes of the last regular meeting, that is of June 21st, 2017, have been circulated. And
Move their approval.
is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Then the minutes of the meeting of June 21, 2017 may be archived for public inspection. We will, we will call the hearings in order of receipt. They are cases 2058, 2059, 2060, 2061, and 2062. I think it might be prudent to call and see whether everyone is in each of those cases is prepared to proceed. Case 2058 is the application of Paul and Marilyn Deruta.
Present and prepared to go forward.
Very well. Case now number 2059, the application of Thomas Latanzi.
Present and prepared to go forward.
Thank you,
Again.
sir. The case number 2060 is 23 Standish Road LLC.
Present.
Very well. And that's case 2061 is 21 Standish Road to LLC. And you're ready to roll on that too?
Yes.
And finally,
Doing a
case number
Davidson.
2062, the application
It's a
of
business
William
address.
J. Baloo. Case number 2062 related to the property at 36 Alden Road, Orleans. Mr. Baloo or any agent of his? All right, well, we'll call it in due course. Doesn't appear that anyone's here to move on that. But in the meanwhile, we'll proceed with case number 2058, Mr. Landreth. Is any member of the board have had any communication with the applicant or any of the applicant's agents which would ought to be disclosed or give rise to a conflict of interest? There's no positive response, therefore I declare a quorum of 5 members, and the board is indifferent. Mr. Landreth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Dwayne Landreth of Latanzi, Spaulding, and Landreth. Seated with me is one of the applicants, Paul DeReuter, and also present tonight is David Little, who did some of the plans that you have in your file. Paul and Marilyn are applying for permission to use the second story of an existing structure and garage as an accessory dwelling under the bylaw 164-40 styled uncommon housing. This became feasible for them when the zoning bylaw for the so-called uncommon housing was modified by redefining the accessory dwellings to include detached structures, and that took place in 2016. The bylaw allows an accessory dwelling on a lot with a single-family house if the accessory dwelling is no more than 800 square feet, the building does not increase lot coverage by more than 2%, there is adequate septic capacity, and lot area must be 40,000 square feet of upland. The 40,000 square feet of upland is what brings us to this board for a variance tonight. There's 49,638 square feet of gross area and 31,200 feet of upland, so they're 8,800 square feet short. The fifth provision of the bylaw is that the owner must, by an annual affidavit, demonstrate to the building inspector's satisfaction that the lot is held for rental and is being rented at at least 12-month increments. The bylaw is flexible in that it allows the owner to live in the accessory unit and rent the main dwelling, which is what the Reuters proposed to do. You have a site plan that was prepared by Ryder and Wilcox on 5/31/17. There's also another site plan with more detail with regard to the topography of the lot, which is attached to the narrative. According to the 5/31/17 plan, the lot has total frontage on Woods Neck Road and Marsh Lane of 191 plus feet. It varies between 350 and 250 feet in depth. The land slopes from a 36-foot elevation at the road down to 10 feet and less in the upper one-third of the lot. The site plan shows what is now an existing two-bedroom house in the northeast corner of the lot, and it's right on the edge of the floodplain being the limit of the 100-year storm, and also in this case categorized as a coastal bank under wetland regulations. That house was built in 1960, and it has 728 square feet of habitable space, and also it's got 2 bedrooms, as reflected in the assessor's card. It was reduced from a 3-bedroom to a 2-bedroom home by eliminating a common wall between 2 existing bedrooms to make a larger master bedroom. The site plan also shows the present garage studio. It was built in 2015, when after purchase in 2013, the family decided to build a garage to alleviate the parking issues on the lot, and the studio was created as additional space. The total building coverage for this is 1,116 square feet. I would ask you to look at 2 pages of the elevations and floor plans of the that are attached to the application, not part of the narrative. The A1 of 3 shows the elevations of the garage as it would propose to be modified, and you have a copy of the plan. I've shown you the exterior modifications that need to be made to this structure to allow it to be habitable. It constitutes an exterior stairway. With regard to the floor plan, there's to be no change at all. I'm holding up, I believe, what is A2 of 3. And that shows the stairway, exterior stairway, and it shows a reconfiguration of the garage only to allow for, I believe, fire spacing, but it's required by the building code. So there's virtually no work to be done on the existing building. Now, I also want to provide you with some photographs of the site, and they basically are the 2 structures in the main structure first, and what they are is a look from the front and the counterclockwise stroll around to look at the 4 elevations in context. Okay.
Thank you.
And then the second set of photos I have are likewise, they show what is now the garage studio from the street first and then moving around in a counterclockwise fashion. They show all 4 facades.
Thank you, sir. is this way. There's some others starting at that end.
Oh, okay, very well. Beth?
So I would call to your attention that if this relief is granted, the total habitable space would be 1,378 square feet on the lot. A floor area which, floor area ratio to upland of 4%. And there will be a total of 3 bedrooms.
Thank you.
Now, on 16440, we basically went through the provisions, and as I indicated, the owner is short 8,800 square feet. But I also didn't cover in any detail the building addition could not exceed 2% of lot area coverage. To demonstrate that, lot coverage is not defined in the bylaw. Building coverage is. So the way that we did that measurement was we took the 1,116 square feet of the building for the garage and divided it by the total area, 49,200 square feet. And it's just at 2% rounded off. The Board of Health has to document to the building commissioner that sewage disposal will be satisfactory under local regs and Title V. There is an existing 4-bedroom system right now which services the 3 bedrooms. There is also on the record a covenant that the owner made when the studio construction was done, which essentially covenanted to the board that it would not be used for habitable space. Obviously, before we go to the building inspector with the Board of Health certification, we'll see that that particular provision is struck. In other words, what the Board of Health was doing there was to make sure that their determination that the studio counted as 1 bedroom did not mean that it could be habitable, which is essentially the same issue that you all are dealing with. So we will be, if we are successful, we will go to the Board of Health to have that provision struck. And if you want it in the record, I have a spare copy of that particular provision. We can handle that.
Limited to 4
Sure,
bedrooms.
if you have that, it'd be great.
Okay. Give me a minute. Well, there it is. Mind you,
Thank
if it hasn't emerged from the narrative, part of the reason that the writers did not do this as a habitable structure in 2015 was because the bylaw at that point did not allow it. It was 2016 that would allow the use of this structure for habitation because it's a single-family detached situation. So I also indicated that the bylaw requires the building inspector to be satisfied on an annual basis that the lot, that the unit is being used as a rental unit, which obviously indicates that the purpose of the bylaw is to encourage long-term rental of apartments associated with single-family residences.
Does that mean it's a year-round rental?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Now, as outlined in the narrative accompanying the application, the DeRoiters want to have their adult daughter lease their residence on a full-time basis. And when the DeRoiters are in Orleans, they would inhabit the studio apartment as an accessory unit. The reason that they cannot invoke the bylaws, as I indicated, because of the topography of the lot, which classifies a certain portion of their lot as unbuildable. When this lot was first created in 1926, all 49,000 square feet plus could be counted as usable land. For Board of Health purposes, the gross lot area is counted in its one bedroom per 10,000 square feet. So this would allow for 4 bedrooms as a matter of right, as was indicated. If this lot were vacant at this time, it would be buildable for a single-family residence under a number of savings clauses within the bylaw. While it's not directly pertinent to the 40,000 square foot requirement in this bylaw, that requirement bears no logical relationship to the intent of the bylaw, and in fact would frustrate its purpose. The de Ruyter's inability to use this bylaw is a hardship, burdening their lot and foreclosing a rational and understandable use. Desirable relief can be granted without substantially derogating from the intent and purpose of the bylaw. The purpose of this particular bylaw is to provide apartments. There's no derogation from the public good. Even if this additional use is permitted, the impact on the neighborhood will be virtually non-existent. The site is isolated, and 3 bedrooms worth of use when occupied will not spawn a nuisance for the neighbors. I would note, too, that my client whispered to me, and I know it from my own personal experience, that there are virtually no year-round owners who occupy houses in the Pochett subdivision anymore. In the wintertime, it's basically a ghost town. This is a very modest use of a lot within it, and I would dare say forecloses any further development given the environmental constraints. So with all that said, the de Ruiters respectfully request that the board exercise its discretion and grant a variance for this particular use.
There's no question that you
Question
need,
in the audience.
excuse me. Was there a question?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I have an objection to this.
Oh, we'll get to you.
Okay, thank you.
We inquire of the applicant, and then we hear other comments, including objections
Thank
from whoever's present. There's no question you need a variance rather than a special permit.
Yes, that's correct.
And if you were to, if the applicant were to receive the relief that applied for, then it would be conditional upon the annual filing of the affidavit required by 164-40A5.
Yes, sir.
Now, and the covenant somehow or other that would recorded with registered land would be revoked in some form.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just as a side remark, inasmuch as this bylaw really directly addresses the building inspector, I believe that we could take care of all of those particular matters that need to be taken care of on the administrative level with the building inspector. Quite obviously, he has to do some administrative work in order to qualify this use.
Okay. Well, we'll proceed with questions. Mr. Todd?
I'd like to address the covenant to not use it as a residence. If I understand correctly, there's currently a 4-bedroom septic,
Yes.
and there are currently 2 bedrooms in what was once a 3-bedroom house.
Correct, but also the Board of Health, if you look at the covenant, they, for administrative purposes, assigned, it cost them 1 bedroom. So even though
Yes.
it's not a bedroom, it's qualified as a bedroom for their count. So there are.
The studio was
Yes,
counted as a
yes.
bedroom with the caveat that it wouldn't be used as a residence. or
Correct,
Whatever.
correct.
So what was the reason for that, if you know?
Well, I could ask David Little, who was part of this, but my understanding, my understanding is that this was a bit of housekeeping by the Board of Health, that they wanted to, by classifying it as a bedroom, they did not want to suggest to the applicant that it could be used for habitable purposes. So it essentially stated what the law already was, which is it's not for habitable purposes. You can't inhabit it. The new bylaw came along now, which was not in existence at the time that covenant was imposed. And so, you know, in the course of satisfying the building inspector, we obviously have to address that.
New bylaw vis-à-vis the wetlands, or?
No, the new bylaw which classified, which allowed you to have a detached structure as an accessory dwelling. So that possibility didn't exist in 2015 when the studio was built.
And the detached structure as an accessory building is specified in 164, the uncommon housing bylaw? Is that-
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Landreth, you're going to need approval of the Pochette Property Owners Association?
Is that, Mr. Chairman, with respect to the issue of the covenant?
Well, you know, Mr. Horan has, on behalf of the Ann P. Horan Trust, has submitted a letter dated July 3, 2017. He raises that question. I want to make sure that you're okay with that.
Yes,
Or
Mr.
you-
Chairman.
Or you've accounted for it.
Well, for the simple reason that the covenant in question here was imposed on 11/24/1967 by that deed in this chain of title. And inasmuch as it was a deed post, or a restriction post December 1st, 1962, I believe it is, or 61, it only has a 30-year life unless it's extended. Looking at the record, there's been no extension of that, so that particular covenant has lapsed and is no longer of any force and effect.
All right, so you're not, if you proceed, you won't be jeopardized by the association,
Not in my opinion.
all right? Mr. Mulligan?
No questions.
Mr. McCarthy?
And the septic plan that's shown as for a four-bedroom system, it is currently or would be tied into the quote studio garage?
It currently is, I believe. Yeah.
Yes.
So it services both structures. And that, my recollection, was moved at the time that the garage was built.
An additional septic tank was installed to provide a connection to the existing leaching facility.
Okay. And in connection with changing from the main house from a four-bedroom to a three-bedroom, or?
No, that was a choice the writers themselves made. They turned the three-bedroom house into a two-bedroom house. The studio is considered a bedroom by the building department and by the Board of Health. That's why we had to demonstrate you had the capacity. Even though it has the deed restriction, you still are required to have the necessary capacity because it has a bathroom in it that's going to get used.
What caught my eye was that on the septic plan, it says existing dwelling, four-bedroom to become three-bedroom. Are we not talking about it would remain a three-bedroom? And the fourth bedroom is in the studio?
No, there were actually two steps. First, at that time, it was reduced from a four-bedroom to a three-bedroom. Subsequent to that, it was reduced to a two-bedroom by taking the common wall out. I referenced the assessor's card, current assessor's card, which indicates that there are two bedrooms.
Okay, thank you. I'll pass for the moment, if I may.
Mr. McCartney?
So this has two means of egress in the garage as it is built now, or we have to add a stairway?
We have to add an exterior stairway.
And so that'll be attached to the deck?
Yes.
coming in that way?
Yes.
And it's a half bath, are you gonna add a shower or upgrade?
It's there already, a shower and it's a full bathroom without a bathtub, it's just a shower.
Oh, okay, I misread the
There'll be
plan.
no change to the
Okay.
bathroom.
Okay, and I guess my feeling, as long as it's stipulated year-round use, I think that's the intent of the bylaw, is to provide year-round housing, which you're obviously doing, so I think that's good.
Mr. Landris, do you want, you've received a copy of Mr. Horan's letter.
Well,
You wanna
yes,
address yourself to that?
the only rebuttal I had with regard to that was the question of the covenant. I think the situation speaks for itself. If you look at the photos, this is a heavily treed site. At least the initial use, the family use, is not going to be intensive at all. I dare say that there's no house within the subdivision that has a floor area ratio, that's developed, that has a floor area ratio of less than 4% in terms of habitable space. So this is a pretty anodyne use of the property. I understand the concerns that the neighbors have. Of course, they would be respected. But we certainly, there is no intent by the De Ruiters to create any kind of a nuisance situation. The physical changes to the lot are virtually non-existent, and I feel that notwithstanding their good faith concerns, that it's a perception that's not grounded in provable facts.
Okay, just ask Mr. Landrith, what is the total square footage of the garage studio?
Do you mean how big is the habitable space, or the potentially habitable space on the second floor?
I am reading from 16440A1.
It's 650 feet.
Thank you.
Your specific problem here in the application is all about the topography and the arithmetic calculation and percentages which were involved with the buildable upland. That's the long and short of it.
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone present who wishing to speak in favor of this application? Now, ma'am. In opposition?
In opposition.
Can you
yes.
tell us who you are and?
My name is Ruth Regan. I'm Harold Horan, whose letter that you received to one of his siblings.
Can I see the letter?
We are
Yes.
in disagreement with what purpose of the garage/studio is now going to be used as a single dwelling, whereas all of the people in the PPOA, which is Pochit Property Owners Association, according to the bylaws, whether they are up to the current specifications, I'm not certain of, but we are under the understanding that all the properties were to be single-family dwellings, and we're concerned about the depreciation of our property once this garage studio becomes a rentable piece of property. And in the future, that lot will then be sold as two dwellings on the property. It is a wooded area, it's very quiet, which is one of the reasons we enjoy it. And there's also a lack of parking, which would, in that particular corner, could cause quite an extra area that would be blocked for passable. As it is, the vehicles have to stop to let another car go by. But we're mainly concerned about the fact that this will now be a rentable piece of property.
Are you claiming that the intensity of the present use is going to be
What's the parking?
changed substantially by,
Okay.
if this application is granted? I mean, isn't there a driveway there already that leads up to the garage?
There is a driveway, yes.
Is there a driveway next to the house?
No,
Two parking spaces, two designated parking spaces off-road for the house.
Okay.
Off of Marsh?
Yes.
The comment I was mentioning, so that it's clear to you, ma'am, is that the topography is, well, the topography for every lot is unique, but in this case, it's particularly aggravated because the coastal bank intrudes in such a fashion as to reduce what is actually reduced to a buildable upland of, say, 31,000 square feet of a lot that really has almost 50,000 square feet, and that's what the applicant says is a hardship. And we've seen that before. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition or has a comment about this application? Mr. Tom?
If I am recalling the Upland case correctly, we ruled against the applicant, if I'm thinking of the same case you are. In addition to the Upland, which you and Mr. Landreth are in essence saying is the sole criteria that we have to address, I'm hearing from the butter that there's something in the bylaws of the association that preclude anything other than single-family dwellings on a lot.
Yeah, I heard.
If that is indeed the case, I would be disinclined. If that was indeed the case, I would be disinclined to grant this if I had the power to do so.
We ran across this situation once before in Grandview where the applicant admitted that the negotiations were ongoing with the Grandview Association, we'll call it, in East Orleans. And finally, Grandview Association allowed the change in whatever, allowed relief from the restriction. Mr. Landreth says that the restriction's so old that either by its terms or by operation of law, that it's expired. I don't know what to say about that. We were sensitive to the enforcement of the restriction because the overlay to what we do here is to be the last stop on the train line. And
Would not necessarily
it wouldn't be the case
Right.
if the association's involved. And the objector, who is a neighbor,
And a member of the
doesn't
association.
necessarily speak for the association,
Correct.
and no one else from the association is here, but that doesn't, from that, we may not conclude that the association doesn't have that kind of objection, because that kind of restriction is right on to what the applicant wants to do.
excuse me again.
Yes, ma'am.
I was under the understanding that there's some type of letter I thought my brother had included with signatures of people from the association.
We didn't get that.
No, ma'am, I don't have.
I got the letter by email, and the original was in today's mail, so the original is here for the file.
We have Mr. Horan's letter, all right.
Yeah, there was no signatures in addition.
I believe.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
The dialogue's gone along quite a ways since you raised the question. I think it's an open forum at this point in time. I'm very familiar with this subdivision. This subdivision is an ancient subdivision. There is a notion somehow that the PPOA has some power at all. It doesn't even have the authority to maintain the roads. I believe that the neighbor is making reference to the restrictions that I talked about. Those restrictions said that any house, dwelling house placed or maintained on the granted premises shall meet the following requirements. A, it shall not be designed or adapted for use by more than one family. As I indicated to you, that restriction is no longer valid by operation of law. The PPOA does not have any authority to rule with respect to this particular matter. None. None has been cited. And as I say, I have researched it carefully in the context of the road. This is registered land. If there's a restriction on it, that restriction should be a matter of record, not in some dusty stack of bylaws. So I assure you, the association has no authority with regard to this matter. If the evidence is to be taken as credible, there should be some documentation of same, in my opinion, as a matter of fairness. And we're not in a hurry with regard to this. So if the board wants to take the extraordinary step of continuing it so that they can gather some evidence, I don't mean signatures, but evidence that this is unlawful under the Pochit Property Owners Association bylaws or any set of restrictions that they presume to enforce.
Well, it may not be unlawful, but it might be unenforceable.
Well,
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Taub,
Good point, sir.
Mr. Taub, there's a covenant that the applicant executed and recorded with the registered land section in 2014, which says
Yes.
that garage not to be used as a
Right.
bit with,
Right. Right, well, this continues to concern me, as does the upland, as does the bylaw, and without jumping the gun, I actually support Mr. Landra's notion that this should be continued for further assessment, but I will defer to the wisdom of the board.
Mr. McCarthy. Or Mr. Mulligan?
yeah, I have some experience with these associations that were set up when land was developed. I think this town is rife with these old associations with covenants that may have made sense in 1950 or 1960, but the town has long since moved on. I don't know that we have the competence or the responsibility to get behind whatever covenants may be from the original association. It seems to me that it's all we have the responsibility for is the town bylaws. Whatever association may or may not have, I don't think we should be pouring through that and try to figure out if the association has rights, there's somewhere else to be enforced, not the zoning board of appeals. It would be in some land court or some superior court. And I think we open ourselves as a precedent to get into all these covenants from other developments, because I lived in one and we had neighbors who used to fight about which covenant applied and when they did. And that's way beyond our ability to sort out. It seems to me that the graph and the main reason for the opposition is that it's going to be a second dwelling. That was sort of the point of the town bylaw in 2015, 16, whatever, 2016 rather. The bylaw which allowed this section of uncommon housing. The town sort of expressed the public purpose of making affordable housing. or to increase the housing stock where it could be reasonably appropriate. I think this is right on all fours on the purpose of the new town bylaw. I agree with you, the problem seems to be a changed definition of buildable uplands, another issue of which I have strong feelings, but I would support the applicant's motion here.
Very well. You mean, not the thinking that needs to be continued, but
No, not the,
you're
I don't
generally
see,
in favor of
don't-
granting the variance.
if the purpose of continuance is for us to
I wasn't thinking of doing that, doing the gumshoe work or investigating at the Registry of Deeds.
Or collecting signatures.
No,
as was
no.
Suggested.
Far from that.
or
no.
to peruse through some association documents, which may or may not have any relevance.
We were going to sign that to you. too.
Yeah.
Oh,
I thought that the chairman's comment that we were intended to be kind of the last stop
Well,
was so while maybe we shouldn't even think about that further litigation might occur, but I agree with you completely that we are not within our purview to do the kind of investigating you suggested, and I don't think we're thinking about that at all. I think we're only thinking about this last comment.
Well, we're not going to be the last stop anyway, it has to go to the health department.
Well, I
That
think
was
to
asserted.
Bruce's point, perhaps the order ought to be reversed.
I think the applicants can decide where they want to spend their money first, which jurisdiction may have the least likelihood of success. I think that's what usually happens.
So he was talking about going and having it struck, which kind of presumes that they would do it, I guess, but maybe he has some influence or something there that,
I mean, you hire a counsel, you try to figure out what hurdles you have to do. I don't know that we want to have to say you have to come to us last, that we're going to be only act when everything else is, all the other boxes are checked. Because if we are in fact the more arduous permit, you would start with us. And let the easier ones, because you don't want to waste your time and illegal money chasing around other. If you're the last one is the one you don't think you're gonna succeed at, you wouldn't let it go last. You let it go first. It seems to me common sense.
And could I just ask, I don't know if this is timely either, so I apologize if it's not. Are you saying that if the only issue is the upland issue, that you're prepared to vote on this, and you've decided on your vote at this time?
Yep.
Okay. Can I ask you what distinguishes this from the one we rejected?
I voted for the one you rejected. So there's no distinguishing.
Okay, fine.
he's got a perfect record, I think.
You're consistent, we like that.
I felt very strongly about that one, as a matter of fact, but I lost.
Let me see if we
I have a
can,
question on
yes,
on
please.
a different topic, Mr. Chairman. Can I ask what the current use of the studio is, since it was constructed along with the garage?
Sure. It's my office, although I'm retired. My wife might call it something different. But that's where I spend a lot of time.
Okay.
Man cave.
Do you, maybe since you've heard it's a moot, but do you get mail at, it's not a separate address now?
Well, none of us get mail. It's all P.O. box at the post office. I have, for just purposes of UPS deliveries and things, I've put a 6.5. Our home is 6, and I put a 6.5 just when I had to somehow identify it differently. But we don't get mail there.
Pardon me, okay. I was curious because I saw in the comment letter that it's proposed to be changed to 12.
I don't know where that came from. It's certainly not proposed on my part.
Oh.
I propose no change at all.
Okay. This should be on the record anyway, right?
Thank you, yes. Mr. Landrum, can you tell us whether the restriction that Mr. Horan refers to expired by terms of a document?
Mr.
In
Chairman.
other words, does the restriction say to the effect that this restriction shall expire 30 years after the sale of the last property by the developer or something like that?
What I can provide you is a copy of the deed, which was the most recent restriction that I could find of record that burdened this property. What I could also provide you, I don't have a book of statutes, but this is statutorily governable. It says, as you stated, no covenant shall be enforceable after the run of, which was imposed after December 1st, 1962, shall be enforced after 30 years unless a continuation of it is recorded. And then it goes on and gives what the hoops that you have to jump through to continue a set of covenants. They're quite complicated, and it's a difficult statute to read, but that part of it at least is clear. And if you want me to present you the statute by letter, I'd be happy to do so.
No, the real question is, that was my second question, if it's by operation of law, why this restriction is no longer enforceable?
Yes,
Not
precisely.
by its terms?
No, sir, not
All
by
right.
its term. And let me provide, at least as an exhibit, the deed in 1967, which was from Shirley L. Charm to Ludwig Kleinfeld.
So this is where it first appears?
It's where it first appears in this chain of title. I looked at
All
it
right.
going back earlier, and I found that it burdened some parcels of property, but it didn't burden Lot 61 in its earlier manifestation. So I took the trouble to track this down to understand, because I knew there were restrictions of record that existed at a certain point in time, as there frequently are. But it's all enhanced by the, the
Oh, no,
ease.
no. The foregoing restrictions and agreements shall endure till the year blank or until the expiration of 21 years after the death of the survivor, the persons who might execute the document. So it's right here.
Well, what I was trying to do was
I think it's
to
perpetuity.
kill the snakes, and so I relied on the earlier. I certainly don't disagree with the reading of it. It's just, as I say, I put the issue to bed after I determined that it was no longer enforceable.
Is that the conclusion you came to, reading that?
Yes,
Okay.
quickly. I thought Mr. Todd might need the benefit of it.
Mr. Todd was satisfied.
Did you have a comment, Mr. Little?
I just wanted to make a clarification about the restriction that was recorded for the Board of Health. It's actually a requirement of the building department through, when the application first comes before the building department, it cannot be considered a bedroom. And the building department places that requirement on the Board of Health they're the mechanism through which that restriction gets placed.
All right, and this is why Mr. Landreth mentioned that it could be, that covenant could be dealt with administratively.
Yes, sir.
All right. And you've illuminated me a little bit anyway as to the procedure to do that. Is there any other comment by any member of the audience or you, Mr. Landreth?
I would distinguish, or offer to distinguish for Mr. Taub, that I believe, and I don't know the pertinence of the case entirely, but the topography in this case has to do with the fact that the upland is such that it limits, in general, the development of the lot. And the topography is also has, as I say, it was quite a large lot when it was first developed, oversized lot, in fact, in that area. So if that's of any benefit.
Very well, then I'll close the hearing to the taking of evidence and ask for any comments by any members of the board.
I'm of course of divided sympathies. You know, I want to let the deriders do what they want with their property in the spirit of Ralph Soderstrom, who used to say that frequently. I'm also sensitive to the concern of the neighbor relative to, this does seem to me to represent though modest, the change in character, if you will, from what can be single-family lots. And lastly, for consistency's sake, I think that the upland issue is determinative. So that's where I'm leaning, pending other comments.
Very well. I'm inclined to think that the topography of the lot does constitute a hardship. The shape of it, and I realize that every lot is unique, but it changed the arithmetic here. No other case before us, by that before us, I mean, in our history, binds us to a particular vote. And that's my current thinking, is in this case, the applicant has established it. The building is there. There's no major renovation to do violence to the neighborhood.
And you're saying that as in distinction to the other upland case where there was significant building, et cetera. It was a division.
Well, that was
a
kind of
subdivision.
that was kind of the
Yeah.
proposition, but I wasn't thinking of comparing or contrasting the two. But I know that we do desire to be consistent, and I agree with you. I understand your sensitivity. Mr. McCarthy?
However else I might feel about the particular application, I think the standards for the variance as stated in the code are met in this application.
Very well. Ms. McCartney?
I'd be inclined to approve.
Very well. Then, Mr. Mulligan, I think you spoke your piece already.
I did, yeah.
Then I'll entertain a motion to grant the variance.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And opposed?
Abstain.
One abstention. Motion carries 4-0. One. Or,
Yes.
very well. I'll write the opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Thank you.
Dude, you want this?
Plans?
I need these.
Thank you.
Is there more photographs that I need to keep in the original file?
There were two sets.
I saw one.
The other one went that. Bruce, that set of photos.
Do I have the covenant?
Right here, Bruce. I got
Oh,
it.
yeah, I just handed it back to him.
I need the covenant. I think I need the covenant.
Here you
The,
go.
the Board of Health one, or?
Okay,
the-
that's the one. Board of Health I never saw, so that's okay. All right. Very well. Now we have Case number 2059, this is the application of Thomas Latanzi to modify a previously granted variance as set forth in General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 10, under zoning bylaw sections 164-21A and 22A, to alter a single-family dwelling which is non-conforming with respect to lot area and frontage requirements. This property is located at 3 Standish Road, Orleans map number 14, parcel number 7. Has any member of the board had any communications with the applicant or any of the applicant's agents which would constitute a conflict of interest or ought to be otherwise disclosed? There's no positive response, therefore I declare that a quorum is constituted and is indifferent. Mr. Landreth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Dwayne Landreth, and I represent Elizabeth Charm and Richard Long, who are the beneficial owners of this property. With me tonight is the architect, Mr. Duckham, and David Little. I would also begin this presentation with what I may be forgiven for calling a charming coincidence. Liz Charm is the daughter of Shirley Charm, who was the grantor in the deed to Mr. Klavenfeld that we were looking at the restrictions in. Her mother developed that particular property that you were just struggling with. So, but she's not free to answer any questions about it. So
We weren't going to ask any about it.
That's good.
it's a small world town. The owners are seeking a modification of a variance granted by the Board of Appeals in 1980 in order to replace the existing house. I did set forth this in the narrative, so I'll be brief with regard to going through a summary of it. I'd like to ask the board's indulgence to revise the plans slightly. I got these plans just recently, and they are pretty inconsequential. I'll walk you through just the changes, and my purpose in bringing them in is that they're just so that we have a proper plan of record for the property.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's
two of these in each one?
oh, I thank you.
You need one?
I'll just walk you through. There's two sets of plans that I gave each of
Okay.
you.
Could we get a copy?
What?
Can we see one? Do you have any?
Sure. Do that. There's, the first is an elevation of the property that is, as it says, a front elevation material study, which gives you a better idea of what the house is going to look at than the black and white drawings that you had. Also, pages 2 and 3, though they're not so labeled, of that particular plan shows some snapshots of the Calderwood property. They're the elevations, so I thought that they would be good for comparison. The changes that are proposed and are documented in the longer set of plans were the garage door has windows now, which are reflected both in the elevations material study and also the new plans. And there's a black band detail below the transoms that is shown, and that's the only difference between these plans and the earlier plans that you had. So. The subject lot is, you need a set of the other plans? No? Okay. The subject lot is number 3 Standish Road, and it's shown as attachment B on the application, a narrative to the application, and it basically is an amalgam of lots 6 and 15 on the subdivision plan of 1922, which was recorded at Book 10, page 7, which is the Nauset Heights subdivision. And as I'm sure you're all aware from cases in this matter, there was amalgamation over the years as the smaller lots, which were effectively not suitable for anything other than cottages, were combined, and various and sundry things happened. And this particular case is very much a creature of the culture that was created by these small lots initially. The lot as combined has in excess of 18,000 square feet and 79.1 feet of frontage, and approximately its depth is between 240 and 215 feet away from the Standish Road layout. As you can see from the site photos with the elevations, the land is basically level. The lot first came into single ownership by a deed in December 1968 to Susan Spencer, who later sold it to Owen Calderwood. When that conveyance was made, the minimum lot size, when the conveyance to Spencer was made, the minimum lot size was 15,000 square feet of area and 100 feet of frontage. And most of the lots were protected under that particular savings clause, because some of them had 100 feet of frontage. But if you look just at this particular plan and chart the fact that there's 80 feet of frontage on lot 15, you could see that there are lots all over the place that didn't have 100 feet of frontage that are currently developed. At the beginning of 1980, when Dr. Calderwood sought to build a house on the lot, he discovered that he required relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals, which was granted. I furnished you with the zoning application portions of the zoning bylaw, which was prepared and presented by Will Joy, and the board's decision. Parsing the decision as it referenced both section 4, paragraph B, and subsection 4.3 of the then bylaw, which you have copies of. Dr. Calderwood was granted a variance to 2 provisions of the bylaw, in my opinion. One, there was a grant of relief from the 4.2 under paragraph 4 of the whatever of those provisions of the area and frontage part of the table, which were not applicable to this. And then they also took a second step, which was they looked at that 15,000 square feet of area and 100 feet of frontage as a savings clause, which we still have today, and said, all right, we're going to grant a variance for that lack of 20 feet. So the board, in effect, varied the savings clause. It really doesn't make a difference with regard to consideration in this particular matter, but I just wanted to point that out, that they were careful to do that, and the application by Mr. Joy is careful to note those 2 provisions from which he was seeking relief from the bylaw. What it came down to is the board granted a variance to build a single-family residence on the subject lot. The plan that Mr. Joy offered was no more than a site plan, essentially. It was an outline of the proposed structure. I cited a case in the application, Huntington versus the Zoning Board of Appeals of Hadley, which was decided by the appeals court in 1981. The court was reviewing a board's decision which had modified an earlier grant of a use variance, and it was to strike some conditions of the earlier variance. The court held, since the earlier grant of the variance was never appealed, the court was bound to presume that the earlier board's decision found each of the necessary criteria for a variance were met for the second go-around, which in essence is saying that, well, whatever the board's decision was making was in 1980, it's res judicata with regard to, use a technical term, or it's a law of the case with regard to the present set of facts. So a pertinent question then is whether the modification proposed is consistent with the spirit and intent of the earlier relief or inconsistent with it. Some observations I think are worth making to the board. First, the earlier relief was framed as redress for what the board had perceived as an injustice to Owen Calderwood and his predecessors, since they had been paying real estate taxes on the parcel as a buildable lot since 1968, a period of 12 years. The lot was assessed as a buildable lot. The lots surrounding the property, 1 Standish Road, 95 Nauset Road, 13 Standish Road, among others, do not have 100 feet of frontage and are similarly developed. By similarly, I mean similarly in the sense of what we're proposing here with regard to scale. The third point is what the owners propose is consistent with the pattern of development in what is essentially a waterfront community. The house is designed by a noted professional architect. It's been vetted by the Conservation Commission. Another point is that the project is in virtually the same footprint as the earlier one, with some minor variations that are pointed out in the narrative. And it presents a similar silhouette from the street and ocean sides. So it's a fair conclusion that the new house proposed for this property is entirely consistent with the previously granted variance, and that Richard and Elizabeth respectfully request that you grant a modification to the existing variance to allow them to build the house. And Mr. Chairman, if you want me to basically provide a copy of that case for the record, or several copies of the case, I will.
Thank you for your offer. I understand the case. Now, the new footprint complies with setback and sidelines in every respect.
If I understand it correctly, yes, except that there's one corner, which, is that particular corner being corrected in the course of it was like 1/10 of a foot offline?
David Littlerider and Wilcox, we prepared the site plan. They are proposing to rebuild on the existing foundation. And if you'll notice on the site plan, we show a 25.1 foot setback on one side, a 24.9 on the other. I would suggest that the surveyor that did the work originally may have held a different monument in a different manner. The intent was that it conformed to the 25-foot side yard setbacks. I have to be honest with my findings on the survey plan, so it's non-conforming with respect to the one side yard setback by 1/10 of a foot.
No, okay, maybe I'll be a little bit clearer. To the extent that the sideline the original footprint was closer than 25 feet, that's not being changed.
That's correct, sir.
The footprint, however, is being changed in a location, reducing it from 33.4 feet to 30.9 feet, but that doesn't, we don't have to worry about that.
Right.
In all other respects, the footprint is being retained.
Yes, it is.
Other than I didn't understand that. The building is being raised, right?
Building's being raised, footprint
The
is,
foundation is remaining.
And is it a flat or a basement foundation?
Basement.
And adding to the foundation is 456 feet? Is that correct?
456?
Yes, that's correct.
Is that gonna be dug as well, or is that a
Yeah,
pad?
no, that, part of it is going to be dug, part of it is garage.
Okay.
Are these the pictures of the current house?
Yes. And they weren't copied with that darkly to make it look bad. I was struggling with
Usually do
it.
better than this.
So the garage would be accessed from the driveway coming from, into the, in other words, the building as shown is of the long footprint, and the garage would be on the, accessed by the gravel driveway?
Yeah, it's the same way that it is now. It's on the same facade. The facade is the one that is looking northwest.
Understood, thanks.
Mr. Cobb, do you have any questions? Mr. Mulligan?
No questions.
Mr. McCarthy?
No questions.
Ms. McCartney?
So,
Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application or in opposition to it? Let the record reflect that no correspondence has been received, no one has spoken, and that there's been no correspondence received either in favor of or in opposition to the application. Is there anything further?
No, Mr. Chairman.
I'll close the hearing for the taking of evidence. Mr. Landreth has explained at relative length why the, under the law, the original grant of the variance continues until today, even with the proposed
the last one.
raising and redevelopment of the property. I don't think that once the variance was granted, specifically in relation to the frontage on Standish Road, and the three criteria were set forth in the decision, I don't see where a replacement of the building would affect the integrity of that variance, as long as, in this case, practically there's a religious adherence to the location of the present structure. So, I'm inclined to grant the variance. Hardly seems to be in violation and to the spirit of the zoning bylaw at all. Mr. Todd?
I like the existing house, but I agree with you.
This isn't the Architectural Review Board. Mr. Mulligan?
I agree.
Mr. McCarthy? Very well. Very well, then I'll entertain a motion to grant the variance.
So moved.
In a second,
Second.
by Mr. McCarthy. Any comment on the motion? All those in favor
Aye.
and opposed? Motion carries unanimously and 5-0. I'll write the opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Now I can give you this horrible pun that I've had. It says, my comment with regard to tonight's meeting is, this is a Standish room only.
Can we,
Yes.
can we revote?
What you gonna find?
The last one? This one.
Shortest
Oh, I just gave it to him.
With perpetuities, plus 21 years.
That's what I thought.
It's just 21 years after.
I'll get, I'm sorry.
I can't get his goes in the original.
No, they were okay with current dimensional requirements, except for the
Not one
front
town
frontage, which
moderator,
was
it's
long.
another.
frontage and the area, which was
Can I
long
have your
ago taken
handout
care of.
that he just gave us?
By the previous.
Yeah. You
We
see?
sort of,
The one from the.
another
one we just heard?
application, you gotta be
Yeah.
current.
There were two of them?
Apply with current or not, but,
Then you couldn't build it all.
Yes,
right, right.
perfect, thank you.
Well, no, I mean, the existing would stay, right?
Short-term memory's really
Pass
gone.
that down. Pass it down to Sandy.
Pass it.
Gerald would like this officially passed. I second the motion.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have case number 2060 and 2061, of each of which is for an application for special permit as set forth in General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 6, and under Orleans zoning bylaw, Section 164, 3C and 164-21, to raise and replace a pre-existing dwelling or a dwelling and garage, both of which were non-conforming with respect to side yard setback. In one case, the property is located at 23 Standish Road, Orleans, map 13, parcel number 66. And in the other case, the property is located at 21 Standish Road, Orleans, map 13, parcel 67. I consider, if you request, Mr. Little, to for you to address these pair of applications as a unit.
Thank you, I would appreciate that.
Very well. Now, has any member of the board had any discussion or communication with any any of the applicants or its applicants' agents, which would constitute a conflict of interest or should otherwise be disclosed in the interest of the public? No positive response. Therefore, I declare that the board is constituting a quorum of 5 and is indifferent. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, David Little from Ryder and Wilcox, representing James and Allison Nelson, who are the beneficiaries of these trusts. Fortunately, the Nelsons are their closest abutters, so we don't have an issue with the fact that two properties are being raised and replaced immediately adjacent to each other. The Nelsons own 21 and they own 23, so they are obviously both in favor of both projects. This wasn't the case many years ago when I represented someone who wished to raise and replace a house on 21, and that's the reason that the project never went anywhere. So that being said, the main issue here with both properties, and if you don't mind, I'll start with 21.
Yes.
If that's okay, and
Please.
as you can see, there is a large isolated wetland on 21 Standish, which is in itself kind of an oddity for Nauset Heights because it's so high, but we happen to have this one clay layer on this property that has supported an isolated wetland here. So that very much restricts what we can do with the property. We are essentially rebuilding a new house within the footprint of the existing dwelling on 21 Standish. We are reducing the side yard nonconformities slightly in both cases. The proposed garage is going to conform with the zoning bylaw. The dwelling itself is still going to be nonconforming with respect to its westerly property line, but as I mentioned just a second ago, the nonconformities are being reduced slightly. The reason that we are working within the footprint is twofold. One, we have the wetland buffer zone that we had to contend with for the isolated wetland, and then secondly, we had the property line. So we have provided you with plans from Peter McDonald, a local Eastham architect, that shows the design and the layout of the proposed dwelling. The dwelling itself is, it is presently served by a brand-new Title V septic system. The changes are going to require that we move the septic tank, as shown on the plan. We have been before the Conservation Commission. The Conservation Commission has approved the project. There is a significant land management plan that is going to be implemented that is going to actually improve the habitat of the isolated wetland, which was an important concept that the Conservation Commission embraced. The facade from the street is minimal. For those of you that had the opportunity to go out and look at these two sites, it's not the type of properties that you drive by all the time. You drive there to get to them. If you go to the end of the road and you have to turn around and come back. So I really believe that in both cases that there's certainly no issue on neighborhood visual quality. It's not going to be impacted. Additionally, for 21 Standish Road, I appeared before the Orleans Historical Commission. The house itself was built approximately in 1920, and it was written about by a gentleman that lives in Nauset Heights that's sitting behind me right now, Jim Ting. He wrote a book on historic homes in Nauset Heights, and the Historic Commission alluded to his comments and read them into the record. But they ultimately decided that the house could be demolished, that there is no heat inside, it's kind of dormitory living, and it really would not work as a year-round home. Any architectural qualities that the house would, or that the house has, would be lost in trying to reconstruct it and save anything of the footprint. With respect to 23, we have a similar situation where we have an existing dwelling and an existing garage. Both are non-conforming with respect to the setbacks to the easterly property line. The non-conformities are going to be reduced slightly. One significant change here, and this was driven more by the Conservation Commission than anything else, is that the new house is being moved back on the lot, closer to the street, and where the existing dwelling is, a proposed pool is going in its place. Again, there is a significant restoration plan that the owners are going to do to restore the quality of the vegetation on the top of the coastal bank. This property also, well, it also was approved by the Conservation Commission. We went to the Board of Health recently, and we asked for permission to use the existing leaching facility, which is just west of the existing dwelling or west of the proposed pool. And the reason being is, in this area, I believe the clay layer goes down in excess of 22 feet. So had we had to put a new septic system in, it would have required a significant overdig. The existing leaching facility was inspected. It was found to be in good working condition, and the Board of Health is allowing us to build a new house, install a new septic tank, and tie into the existing leaching facility. Both houses, I think, are modest. The proposed building coverage for 2023 is 10.3% of the buildable upland, and the proposed building coverage of 21 is 11.2%, which both comply with the zoning requirements of the bylaw. And in that being said, the amount of buildable upland on the lot is, on both lots, is relatively low. So I think the design by Peter McDonald in both cases The houses are, for Nauset Heights, I would say they're certainly in keeping. They're modest. They don't loom over any bluffs like some other houses that have recently been built will do. The Conservation Commission takes their job very seriously with aesthetics from the water, and we had to supply them with visual elevations from the water side. We also agreed that the building type for both buildings would be natural cedar shingles, and it would also have natural trim. One of the things the Conservation Commission has been pushing towards is eliminating white trim because it stands out so much. And, well, it may not seem important to you, it's important to us in dealing with the various boards to navigate the approval process.
Is that in their purview?
Aesthetics is in their purview. And
It is.
it is. And so the client has agreed that it would not only be natural cedar cedar shingles, it will gray. It's also going to be a natural cedar trim that will be stained a neutral color. It won't be white. So with respect to the special permit criteria, I think both sites are adequate for the dwellings and the garages. The side yard nonconformities are being reduced in both cases. The resulting building coverage on both lots is well below the 15%. There would be no new impact on traffic flow or safety. As I mentioned earlier, the impact on neighborhood visual character will be negligible with the exception of each abutter. And fortunately, the Nelsons are their own abutters in this case, and so the projects being constructed at the same time won't have an impact on the neighbors. Both properties are either served by a new Title V sewage disposal system or a recently inspected and approved one. And in both cases, the impact on groundwater quality, recharge volume, and water quality of coastal and freshwater bodies, the Conservation Commission has reviewed both projects and have issued order of conditions for them, which I have submitted into the record. So that would be my presentation. If I can answer any specific questions, please fire away. Thank you.
I think we need a little help here I'm referring to 23 Standish Road.
Yes, sir.
The northeasterly boundary shows a proposed three-bedroom dwelling. It shows from the corner, northeasterly corner of that dwelling, that the sideline will be 12.7 proposed, and there's a jog that's 10.9 feet.
Yes, that is the chimney, Mr. Marnick. The chimney extends approximately 2 more feet toward the sideline, but even that being said, the existing setback to the dwelling that is being removed is 10.1, which is still, it's still a reduction in the nonconformity from 10.1 to 10.9.
All right, I just needed that interpretation. It's not quite in the same location, however, the 10.1. They meet, or the 10.2 setbacks.
Are to the existing
They're
dwelling.
within the 25 feet, for sure, but they're not really at the location of the new dwelling.
No, they are not, but we are reducing the nonconformities. One of the things that the Conservation Commission encouraged us to do in this situation was to pull the dwelling as far back outside of their jurisdiction as possible. So if you can see the 100-foot buffer zone boundary that kind of goes
almost around 23 Standish Road. That was the reason for pulling it back.
All right.
We're trying to, as I mentioned, we're trying to navigate the permitting process here, and it's, as you know, you are the final arbiter, so to speak, and we acquiesced to the Conservation Commission on as many points as we could. I don't think it would necessarily be reasonable for me to suggest that the house could be closer to the water when it could be moved back in a situation like this. And the pool complies with the setback requirement of 10 feet.
All right.
What does the red indicate on this?
The red are the existing footprints of the two buildings. The red dashed lines are the existing footprints, and then the dark lines show the proposed footprints.
What you end up with was something like 18 feet from building to building as, on the ground right now, is that right?
That's correct. I think these were, if I may, Mr. Thing, these were both former hunting shacks?
They were early cottages. Actually, I think 21 dates to 1915, and the other one to the 20s. And the family that built the one in the 20s, their name was Bixby, and Bixby's Beach was named below them, which is now Priscilla Landing. And the buildings are literally 18 feet apart, and people would talk in one kitchen to their neighbors in the next kitchen. Open the windows and they talk back and forth. It goes
Not to
back-
mention other audible.
It goes way back.
Could I just ask, what is the
And
size
they were
of
very
the
early
buildings that are going on these lots now?
The,
Proposed buildings?
on 21 Standish, the total floor area or footprint, Bruce?
Footprint.
The footprint is 1,921 square feet for both the garage and the dwelling on 23. And it's the proposed building coverage for 21, for both the building and the garage, is 3,273.
And the lot sizes are similar?
Lot 21 has 31,800 square feet of total area, with 29,000 of that upland. And 23 has approximately 24,000 square feet of total area, with 18,000 of that buildable upland.
And then just how many bedrooms in each?
Three.
Three in
No,
each?
there's 4 on 21 and 3 on 23.
That would require the Title V upgrades and all
Both,
of that.
when 21 was sold, the owners, the Snows, because of the interior of it is so irregular, it's the whole inside is open to the joists, but they have walls, almost like dormitory style walls. The Board of Health granted them the fact that they had 4 dormitory style bedrooms in it, so they were grandfathered for 4. And similarly, 23 is grandfathered for 3, even though today neither one would meet that requirement.
And both are proposed to be 2-story buildings?
Yes. The elevations that we provided, which you see, that is the look for 23 and 21.
Small change. Yeah, you bet.
Just like that, and like that. They're both narrow and longer because of the lot shape that we're dealing with. Fortunately, I only have to address the special permit criteria, and I don't have to get into the variance issues that my predecessor did earlier this evening.
Mr. Chop, you have any questions?
No, sir.
Mr. Mulligan?
No?
Mr. McCarthy?
No.
Ms. McCartney?
Thank you.
Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application besides Mr. Little? Yes, sir.
I think I'd like to speak in favor of Jim Tang, Nelson Heights, 13 Standish Road. I know the Nelson family, a young family that bought these two properties a few years back. And I think one of the concerns that the neighborhood had was the possibility of them taking down both buildings, which are very old, and applying to combine all the lots and then build a super large home in place of where two homes are. The fact that they're willing to rebuild two new homes to replace two homes of quite a long age, even with the setbacks being so close as they are, is probably favorable to the heights and the presentation of the heights to the waterfront and so forth. So I would speak personally in favor of it. I'm pleased to know that they're not going to do what some of us were concerned they might do. And I think it's a positive step for the heights, frankly. I don't know the square footage of the two new houses, but they can't be much bigger than what we really have there already. And 2 stories is fine. One of them's already 2 stories, so that's not any real change. And the Conservation Commission, I'm sure, will, like they do with all the rest of us, keep their feet to the fire.
Then may we conclude that the Nelsons were transparent and open with you and the other neighbors as to what they propose to do?
I don't think we've had any communication with them, but people in the neighborhood were familiar with what they intended to do, which was a relief, I think. And that relief goes back a couple of years when they first bought both properties. When the Snows tried to sell their property initially, they ran into a problem with the wetland. David's right, we have 5 or 6 or 7 different wetland situations on the heights that exist from the clay deposits, and that property became essentially not unbuildable, but unbuildable to a new configuration without consideration of the wetland. So this is taking that into effect, and the downside of that is the 2 properties have to be right next to each other from a setback standpoint. So I think it's a plus.
Mr. Chairman, I believe Allison Nelson reached out to her immediate neighbors.
Yes.
She didn't reach out to the Heights, but she did reach out to her immediate neighbors.
We're about 5 or 6 houses away.
So that's why that these plans drawn by Genex Studio are so detailed and precise as to the plantings which are either in existence or proposed.
They're proposed.
It's a major landscaping plan.
It's a major undertaking.
Very well. Any other questions, members of the board? I'll close the hearing for the taking of evidence and ask if there's any commentary or discussion. I'm in favor of both applications myself.
So am I.
Then in that case, we'll entertain a motion in each of the 2 cases to allow the special permit without any conditions.
I'll make the motion. Motions?
Mr. Mulligan, thank you.
Make both
Do we have a
motions.
second?
Second.
Mr. McCarthy. there any discussion on the motions? All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Motions carry unanimously. I will write the opinions.
Thank you. Sandy, I tried to do it by 8:30. I didn't.
I accept this as satisfactory
I figured you-
compliance with my request. I'm grateful.
I knew he was dreaming.
Oh, it's only because the number 5 here that didn't show up.
Right?
Hey, Sandy, can I give you back this tree?
The last
Yeah.
of the last of the applications will have to be remarked. It will disappear from the agenda unless the applicant brings it forward.
Hayes?
All right, do it
Jason?
another way.
We continue it
Could
to
you
the next
please,
meeting, and I'll call
please,
him.
please
I mean, I've
place,
already spoken to him on the phone, I had to call him and ask what he was trying to do with his application.
please place it forward for July 19th then. Members of the board, there is a communication from the Cape Cod Commission, July 10th, a hearing on the Cedar Pond Water Quality Management Plan. If anyone is interested, that will be conducted at the Cape Cod Commission, Route 6A on Barnstable. The notice is available for your inspection. We're going to elect new, it would be in order to elect new officers at this meeting, since it was continued from the last meeting.
Who are the existing officers?
Existing officers are myself as chair and Ms. McCartney as the,
Well, I wasn't the clerk, but that's what I ended up.
Ralph was the clerk,
I'm-
you were the vice.
yeah.
I was in charge of vice.
Did a good job.
We need a chair, a vice chair, and a clerk.
And we currently have a chair and a vice chair, correct?
Yes.
So I move that we re-elect, reappoint, renominate, and reaffirm the chair and vice chair,
Second.
if they're willing to serve.
Yeah, that's fine with me. All right, so all those in favor of those two positions? Aye. And so the election of the chair and vice chair has occurred. And with the renewal and reappointment of the incumbents. Now, the clerk is kind of an important position, principally because the clerk assigns the decisions along with the chair.
I'm happy to do it again if nobody wants to. I mean, does anybody want to be
I
clerk?
nominate Beth McCartney.
I second.
Very well, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then, Ms. McCartney, thank you for your volunteering and for your
Yeah.
generosity and service.
We were gonna make Matt do it,
Why
but he's
do
not
all the
here. so-
officers have last names beginning with M?
Because they all live in South Orleans.
That too. A little triumphant.
Then in that
I think
case,
it's for lack of
I make a
other,
motion to adjourn,
Sure,
sir.
and the second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone.